When the cops rolled up, 2 of them were already lying dead in the dirt, and 3 more were on the ground, moaning and bleeding out. My wife, or the woman who used to be my wife, stood in the corner of the porch, trembling like a leaf, unable to even form a sentence. I stared her down and said, calm and cold, "Did you really think I, Caleb Redhawk, a hardened Marine, would back down from punks like these?" I shook my head. "You were dead wrong, but you still have to answer for what you did." And truth be told, the night was far from over. I never imagined my week would end with bodies scattered across my driveway, police lights flashing against my windows, and my whole life up in smoke. But here I was. Maybe I should back up a little. It all started over something small. Something stupid, really, a locked phone. Lena, my wife of 8 years, had always been open with her phone. No secrets, no passwords hidden away. We were comfortable, easy. But lately something changed. Her phone never left her hand anymore. When she set it down, it was face down, screen hidden. One night, I made a joke as I grabbed a cold beer from the fridge. "Got something to hide?" I teased. She gave me this too sweet smile, all fake warmth. "Come on, Caleb. Don't be one of those husbands." I laughed it off. The first red flag, and I waved it away like a fool. The next one slapped me across the face a week later. "Late nights at work. Deadlines," she said, kissing me on the cheek before disappearing in a cloud of expensive perfume and clicking heels. But it was not just the hours she kept. She stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. Stopped reaching for my hand. Stopped looking at me like I mattered. Lena was not just drifting away. She was sprinting. And I was too blind to keep up. It all came crashing down the night I tried to surprise her. I picked up her favorite takeout, drove over to her office. Her car was there. Lights off. Building dark. I called her. "Still at work?" She lied smoothly. "It's been a long day, Caleb. I'll be home late." I looked up at the empty windows. "Want me to bring you some food?" I asked, playing dumb. "No need, babe," she said, her voice butter smooth. "I'll grab something on the way home." I hung up, takeout cooling in my hand, heart already sinking. That night, when she slipped into bed smelling like a different kind of perfume, cold, and turned away from me, I knew. I started watching closer. Noticing things I used to overlook. New clothes I had never seen before. Phone calls taken in whispers. Errands that somehow took whole afternoons. Then the first undeniable proof landed in my lap. She was getting ready for bed, rummaging through her purse, when a receipt fell to the floor. Not for groceries. Not for gas. A luxury hotel downtown. 2 nights ago. I picked it up, heart hammering against my ribs, and held it up to her. "What's this?" I asked, voice steady even as everything inside me cracked. She froze. Makeup half wiped, a cotton pad hanging from her hand. For a split second, panic. Then a laugh. "Fake. Hollow." "Oh, that?" she said, flipping her hair back. "Work lunch. Client meeting. Grand Monarch Hotel." I stepped closer. "Funny. I didn't know they served lunch in the suites." Her eyes narrowed to slits. She snatched the receipt out of my hand. "Are you spying on me, Caleb? For God's sake. You're paranoid." She slammed the bedroom door behind her. That was when I stopped being the trusting husband she thought she could fool. I started digging. Not angry. Not reckless. A Marine plans his battles carefully, and this was no different. I found old texts on her laptop. Tracked her random disappearances. And finally, I found his name. Ryan Gage. Some smooth-talking coworker she giggled with too much. But Ryan was not the only one. There were others. Flirty messages. Casual hookups that blurred into full-blown betrayal. Lena had not just cheated. She had built a double life. When I finally confronted her a few nights ago, the yelling shook the house. She stormed out, threatening divorce, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. But it did not end there. Tonight, she crossed a line no one walks back from. She showed up with Ryan and 4 of his goons, thinking they could strong-arm me into signing divorce papers her way. Maybe rough me up for good measure. She forgot who I used to be. When they burst through the door, fists flying, I was ready. The rest was a blur. Adrenaline, instinct, years of training. By the time the cops got there, 2 were dead. 3 were bleeding, groaning on my floor. And Lena? She stood in the corner like a ghost. Pale, shaking, clutching her phone, but not dialing anyone. Not even trying. I stood over the carnage and said it again, voice low. "You were wrong, Lena. But you'll still answer for what you did. The police shouted commands. Guns drawn. The flashing lights painted everything red and blue. I dropped the bloodied baton to the ground and raised my hands. It's over, I said, calm as ever. I'm unarmed. They cuffed me fast, muttering about how I seemed too calm for someone standing in the middle of a bloodbath. They had no idea. As they led me outside, Lena followed at a distance. Eyes wide, hands trembling. I turned my head just enough to catch her stare. You did this to yourself? I said quietly. She opened her mouth like she might say something, but nothing came out. The ride to the station was quiet, save for the occasional glance the officer up front gave me through the rearview mirror. Finally, he asked, "You going to tell us what happened back there?" I shrugged. 5 men thought they could scare me in my own home. 2 of them made a fatal mistake. The other 3, well, they'll be rethinking their life choices. And the woman? I clenched my jaw. She set it all up. But my guess is she is playing the victim now. That's her specialty. The officer gave a low whistle, but said nothing more. The truth would come out soon enough. At the station, I gave my statement straight and honest. Told them about the break-in, the threats, how it spiraled. I did not hide my part. I protected my home, and I was not sorry for it. Through the glass, I watched Lena spin her web. Tears, half-truths, desperate little lies, trying to wriggle out of the mess she had made. I leaned back against the bench, staring at the ceiling. Lena had not always been like this. Once upon a time, she could light up a whole damn room. Once, I thought that light was for me. But somewhere along the way, she found someone else to shine for. A few hours later, after being processed and released on my own recognizance, I stepped into the freezing night. And there she was, Lena, leaning against her car, arms crossed, makeup smeared, anger burning in her eyes. "You have lost your mind, Caleb," she spat as I walked past. I laughed, a short bitter sound. "You brought thugs to my house, Lena. What did you think would happen? They were just supposed to scare you," she yelled. "I didn't think wouldn't fight back." I finished for her. Would not defend myself. She jabbed her finger against my chest. "You are out of control. Do you have any idea how much damage you have done? You killed people. They made their choices," I said coldly. "Same as you." Her face twisted in anger, but behind that fury, there was fear too. Fear because she had lost control. "I will make you pay for this," she hissed. I shook my head, smiling bitterly. "No, Lena. You are the one who is going to pay. For every lie, every betrayal, every time you made me feel like I was not enough." Her face cracked then, the first real crack in her armor. "I loved you," I said quietly. "And now all that is left is the truth." I turned and walked away without looking back. I heard her car beep to life behind me, headlights cutting through the darkness. But I knew she was not going anywhere. She was still trying to figure out how to spin this, still trying to plot her next move. But it was too late. I climbed into my truck and sat there gripping the wheel, the night's chaos replaying in my head. The door crashing open. The fight. The blood. And the sound of Lena, gasping in shock, watching everything fall apart around her. Lena's shallow, panicked breathing filled the air behind me. She had crossed the line, and now she was stranded on the wrong side of the wreckage she created. The drive back home was deathly quiet. My hands ached from the fight, knuckles busted and swelling, but the pain did not even register compared to the anger boiling inside me. I had spent months ignoring the truth, making excuses for her, trying to save something that was already burning to the ground. That ended tonight. When I pulled into the driveway, the bloodstains were still dark against the concrete. Yellow police tape flapped in the cold wind, cordoning off my front porch. Nosy neighbors peeked through their windows, hiding behind curtains like crows watching a dying animal. I ignored them all. I ducked under the tape and stepped inside. The house was wrecked. Furniture overturned. Broken glass glittered under the hallway light like tiny landmines. This was not a home anymore. It was a battleground. And its scars would never fully heal. I headed straight for the kitchen, poured myself a strong drink. The whiskey burned going down, but it barely touched the deep hurt clawing inside my chest. A knock sounded at the door. For a second, I thought about pretending I was not home. But through the frosted glass, I saw her silhouette, Lena. I sighed, set the glass down, and braced myself. When I opened the door, she stood there with her arms crossed, looking small for the first time in her life. All that confidence stripped away. "You really not going to let me in?" she snapped. I stepped aside, saying nothing. She marched past me, heels clicking on the hardwood, and stopped in the ruined living room. She stared at the wreckage, then spun to face me. "You made this worse than it needed to be," she said, voice sharp and accusing. I laughed. Short, bitter. "Worse than it needed to be," I said, stepping toward her. "You brought a damn gang to my house, Lena. What exactly did you think was going to happen?" She looked away, jaw tight. "You think I wanted this?" she spat. "If you didn't want it, why bring them? What was the plan? Rough me up. Force me to sign divorce papers so you could run off with one of your boy toys." Her face flushed. For once, she had no smart comeback. Instead, she dropped her voice, made herself sound small and wounded. "I didn't think it would get this bad," she muttered. "I just wanted to scare you." "Stop lying," I growled. Her head snapped up, and for the first time, the mask slipped. Gone was the wounded wife. In her place stood the cold, calculated woman I had finally learned to see. "You cheated. You lied. You turned our marriage into a joke. And when I did not roll over and make it easy for you, you tried to break me." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "Save it," I said flatly. "I am done listening." Her eyes narrowed, rage flashing across her face. "You think you are so righteous, Caleb," she sneered. "Like beating up a few guys makes you some hero. This marriage was dead long before tonight. You just refused to see it." Her words hit like a punch, but I stayed steady. "You are right," I said, nodding. "It died because you killed it. One lie at a time. One betrayal at a time. And I let you, because I thought love meant forgiving even when it hurt." Her tough act cracked for a moment, just a flicker. "You will never prove any of it," she hissed. "You have nothing but your word. After tonight, good luck convincing anyone you are not just a violent, crazy ex." The audacity of her words lit a fire in my chest, but I stayed calm. "Do not worry," I said coolly. "The truth has a way of showing up, and when it does, you will have to answer for everything you have done." She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and stormed for the door. "You are a damn fool, Caleb," she shouted over her shoulder. "No," I said quietly but firmly. "I was." The door slammed behind her like a shotgun blast. I stood there in the ruins of what used to be our life, letting the silence settle deep into my bones. The legal battle, the divorce, the mess she left in her wake. It was all coming. But for the first time in years, I was ready. I sat there for a long time, staring at the broken pieces of our life scattered across the room. Something gnawed at me, something unfinished. I grabbed my phone instead of the whiskey, needing clarity, not more fog. Scrolling through my notifications, one stood out. Security alert. House camera. I pulled up the footage. At first, I figured it would just show Lena leaving. But the timestamp was off. It was after she had stormed out. The camera showed her pacing at the edge of the driveway, nervous and jumpy. Then, headlights. A second car pulling up quietly behind hers. Two large men stepping out, walking straight toward her. I watched, pulse quickening. She pointed toward the house. She was not done. She was doubling down. I moved quick, killing the lights and slipping into the dark. Outside, footsteps crunched softly toward the front door. Inside, I grabbed the biggest knife from the kitchen counter and crouched low by the window. One of them muttered, his voice gravelly. "Break in, grab what we need, get out. He will be drunk and slow." I gripped the knife tighter. I was far from slow. They pried at the front door with a crowbar. While they struggled, I slipped through the side yard. One of them turned too late. The knife flashed once, clean across his arm. He screamed, dropping the crowbar. The other man spun toward the noise, reaching for a weapon. I did not give him the chance. A kick to his ribs sent him sprawling. The weapon skidded useless across the pavement. The fight was brutal. Fast. Instinctive. Punches landed. Blood splattered. But they were amateurs. And I was a man trained to survive worse. When it was over, both lay groaning in the dirt. One with a broken arm, the other clutching his side. I stood over them, chest heaving. Across the street, Lena stood frozen, her mouth slack with shock. When the police cruisers roared up, red and blue flashing across the night, I dropped the knife and stepped back. Officers poured out with guns drawn. I raised my hands high. "Check the cameras," I said, nodding toward Lena. "She is with them." Lena opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Real fear flashed in her eyes. An hour later, I was back in the cruiser, sitting stiff-backed and exhausted. But this time, the footage had done the talking. The cops had seen her, clear as day, plotting with the men. She sat cuffed in a separate cruiser, head bowed, no act left to hide behind. "You have had a hell of a night," one officer said, handing me back my phone. "That is one way to put it," I said, the weight of it all settling into my bones. "What now?" he asked. I looked out at Lena being led away. Divorce. Therapy. A fresh start. I did not know exactly what came next, but I knew what was not coming back. The cruiser dropped me off just as dawn broke across the sky. Orange and gold light stretched over the battered house. An officer handed me my phone. "You have got a rock-solid case. And those two guys? Career criminals. You did us a favor." I nodded absently. His words barely sank in. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me. Silence closed around me. But it was not peace. Not yet. I wandered through the wreckage, glass crunching under my boots. And that was when I saw it, a laptop, glowing faintly on the coffee table. Not mine. Lena must have left it behind. I opened it. Emails. Dozens of them. Payment confirmations. Plans to siphon off my money. Even discussions about falsifying court documents. And there it was. "Martin, we need it done by Friday. Caleb cannot find out. If this works, he will lose everything. Martin. Not just an accomplice. A lover. She had been planning to destroy me long before tonight." My heart pounded as I snapped photos of every email, every file. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You have no idea who you are messing with. Drop it, Caleb. Or else." I stared at the message. Martin was not just some loser. He was dangerous. I gripped my keys tight. No, I would not drop it. I would finish it. The sun was climbing higher, throwing long shadows across the driveway as I fired up my truck. The engine rumbled to life, and I peeled out onto the street, adrenaline burning hot through my veins. I knew exactly where I was heading. Martin's office. Lena's emails had mentioned his law firm too many times to ignore. If he had any brains, he was already scrubbing the place clean. But maybe, just maybe, I could get there before he wiped it all away. The building downtown was sleek, all glass and steel, shining in the morning light like it had nothing to hide. I parked across the street and watched. It did not take long. Martin stepped out of a black SUV, looking like he owned the world, crisp suit, smug posture. He was not worried. He thought he had already won. I followed at a distance, slipping through the front doors right behind him. The receptionist glanced up, but I gave her a confident smile. "Meeting with Mr. Langston," I said, guessing his last name from one of Lena's emails. She barely nodded before waving me toward the elevators. At his floor, everything was too quiet. His office door was cracked open. Invitation or mistake, either way, I stepped inside. Papers cluttered the desk. But what grabbed my attention was the black laptop sitting open. Without thinking, I plugged in a USB drive and started copying files. I was halfway through the transfer when I heard the voice behind me. "Looking for something?" Martin's voice was low and sharp, slicing through the quiet. I turned slowly, keeping my breathing steady. He stood there blocking the door, arms crossed, that damn smirk plastered across his face. "You should have stayed out of this, Caleb," he said, stepping closer. "You think this is about Lena's betrayal?" That was just the beginning. Before I could answer, the hallway outside echoed with a loud crash, the door slamming shut. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Martin leaned against his desk, posture relaxed but his eyes cold. "You do not know what you're messing with," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Lena was just a warm-up. I am the nightmare you should have feared." The USB was still blinking on the desk, transferring. I needed more time. But Martin was not going to just stand there. "You are stealing my files now?" he said with a cold laugh. "That is adorable." I kept my voice even. "You and Lena have been funneling money out of my company, planning to leave me with nothing. But you underestimated me." That got under his skin, just for a second. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "This is not about you, Caleb. This is about power. About building something better after tearing down the weak." He sneered. And Lena saw it. "You were too soft. Too busy clinging to your precious morals to realize you were being left behind." I stared him down. The betrayal. The arrogance. All of it crashing down on me. The USB stopped blinking. Transfer complete. Carefully, I slid the drive into my pocket. But Martin was not done. The door burst open. Not cops. Not help. Two men stormed in, muscle-bound, dead-eyed. Martin grinned. Meet my associates, he said. You did not think I would handle this alone, did you? They closed in fast. One blocked the door. The other came at me, fist already swinging. The first punch was aimed at my ribs. I twisted, grabbed his wrist, and drove my knee into his gut. He staggered back. The second grabbed me, slamming me hard against the wall. The air whooshed out of my lungs, but muscle memory kicked in. I brought my elbow down on his arm, hard, making him howl in pain. A sharp twist, and he crumbled to the ground. The fight was brutal. Sloppy on their end. Pure instinct on mine. Martin shouted orders in the background, but the fight had a mind of its own now. One of the thugs grabbed a chair, swinging it at my head. I ducked it. The chair exploded against the wall. I moved fast. One man caught a punch straight to the throat. The other got slammed headfirst into the desk. Martin, panicked now, reached into a drawer, and I saw it. Gun. Adrenaline hit like a hammer. I hurled the broken chair across the room. It smashed into Martin, knocking the gun from his hands. I seized the moment, disarmed the second man with a brutal punch, and pinned him down. Martin's hands went up. You do not know what you are doing, he spat. You think you are winning? I stepped closer, voice low and deadly. This ends when I say it does. The door crashed open again. This time it was the police. Guns raised, voices booming. I raised my hands, stepping back. Officers cuffed Martin first, rough and fast, pushing his face into the desk. They turned to me next. You Caleb Redhawk? One barked. I nodded, breathing heavy. We have been building a case against this operation for months, he said. Looks like you just gave us exactly what we needed. They dragged Martin out. He twisted around to glare at me, hatred burning in his eyes. This is not over, Caleb. You will pay. I said nothing. I was too busy feeling the USB drive in my pocket, my proof. My future. Back in my truck, I sat there a long time, catching my breath. Lena and Martin had thought they were smarter. Thought they could break me. They forgot one thing. I had already survived worse. I was not here to survive anymore. I was here to win. I drove for what felt like forever. Memories of the morning looped through my head. The fight. The betrayal. The realization. When I pulled into my driveway, the house stood there like a ghost of everything I had lost. Broken glass still glittered in the yard. Furniture flipped and wrecked. I stepped inside. It was still empty. Quiet. I dropped the USB drive on the kitchen counter and stared at it. Was it enough? Was it everything? I plugged it into my laptop and waited as files loaded. Page after page spilled out, evidence of years of betrayal. Lena's name was everywhere. Account transfers, fake invoices, shell corporations. But then, a name I never expected to see. Ethan Walker, my oldest friend, my brother in arms. His name was there, on signatures, on transfers, approving the theft of everything I had built. It hit me harder than anything else. Lena's betrayal was a knife to the back. Ethan's betrayal was a bullet straight through the heart. My phone buzzed. A message. From Lena. We need to talk. Cabin. Alone. Of course. The cabin. Our old getaway spot. Now just another battleground. I grabbed my keys and the USB drive. Stuffed them in my jacket pocket. I was not afraid. Not anymore. The drive out was quiet. Forest thick on either side. The last rays of sun bleeding across the sky. Her car was already there. I approached slow, cautious. The door was unlocked. Inside, Lena sat at the dining table, swirling a glass of wine, trying to look casual. You came, she said. I did not sit. Cut the games, Lena, I said. Why am I here? She sighed, setting her glass down. I know you found everything, but there are things you still do not know. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. Enlighten me. She smiled bitterly. Of course you found Ethan's name. The anger boiling in me nearly tipped over. Start talking, I growled. She lowered her voice. Ethan came to me first. Said you were hiding money. Stealing from your own company. I shook my head. That is a lie, and you know it. Is it? She snapped. How am I supposed to know what is real anymore, Caleb? You were always so secretive. She shrugged. Ethan said you would never let me leave cleanly. So, I took what I deserved. You destroyed everything, I said, voice shaking with fury. And you still play the victim? She dropped her gaze. Said nothing. The quiet was shattered by the sound of boots outside. I turned toward the window, saw a shadow moving. Hand instinctively to my side. Wishing I had brought more than just anger. The door burst open, and there he was. Ethan, calmed, cold, calculating. He stepped inside like he owned the place. Caleb, he said, his voice steady, his betrayal complete. You should have stayed out of this. Ethan's voice cut through the air like a blade. I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a drum, the weight of his betrayal crashing over me all over again. Ethan, I said, my voice low. You're working with her? He gave a shrug, cool and casual. Working with her? No, Caleb. I'm running this whole damn thing. Behind him, Lena stiffened. Her posture betrayed the fear she was trying to hide. Ethan, this isn't what we talked about, she said, voice thin with panic. Plans change, he snapped, not even glancing her way. Caleb knows too much now. He can't leave here. My fists clenched. Every nerve in my body was coiled tight, ready. You really think you're going to stop me? I asked, steady and cold. That was when Ethan reached into his jacket. My heart sank. He pulled a gun. Lena gasped, stumbling back a step, her mask finally slipping. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? What I should have done a long time ago, he said, raising the weapon, cleaning up loose ends. But before anything else could happen, a sound shattered the standoff. Sirens. Growing louder. Closer. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows, painting the cabin walls in strobe. Ethan froze, his gun still aimed at me, but now his hands trembled. Lena backed against the wall, her face ghost white, whatever confidence she had left shattered. I stayed locked on Ethan. If you're thinking about pulling that trigger, I said calmly, this is your last chance to walk away. His eyes bounced from me to Lena, then toward the window where police officers were already flooding the front yard. You think this ends here? He growled. You don't understand, Caleb. I had to do this. You forced my hand. The cabin door slammed open. Officers charged in, weapons drawn. Drop the gun. One barked. Ethan's jaw clenched. I could see the gears grinding in his head, pride, fear, desperation. Then, defeat. He let out a scream of rage and hurled the pistol to the floor, stepping back with his hands in the air. The officers tackled him immediately, forcing him to the ground, locking the cuffs. Lena stood still, arms shaking, as another officer approached. Ma'am, you're under arrest. Hands behind your back. What? No. I didn't do anything. She shrieked. I didn't. You did plenty, I said, stepping forward at last. And now, you're going to answer for it. As they dragged them both out of the cabin, Ethan in one cruiser, Lena in another, I felt everything hit me at once. Relief. Rage. Sorrow. And finally, a strange, bitter sense of closure. The lead officer walked over, his face unreadable. Mr. Redhawk, he said, we've been tracking Ethan Walker and Lena Redhawk for a while now. What you did today helped bring it all together. I gave a slow nod. It wasn't just them, I said, pulling the USB from my pocket. There's a third player, Martin Williams. The lawyer. This has everything. He took the drive and tucked it into a case. We'll follow up. But for now, go home. Get some rest. You've been through hell. Once the cruisers pulled away and the lights disappeared into the trees, I stood alone in the stillness. I walked back into the cabin and stood by the broken window. This place had once meant peace. A retreat. Now it felt like a cemetery. Everything good that once lived here had died. The weeks that followed were a blur of courtroom visits, legal paperwork, and questions I had never imagined I'd have to answer. But the files on that USB drive told a story none of them could lie their way out of. Lena, Ethan, and Martin, all guilty. They had spent years laying traps, shifting money, planning to destroy me from the inside out. It was not just cheating. It was organized theft. And they almost got away with it. Lena played the part of the helpless wife, claimed she had been manipulated by the others. But the documents proved otherwise. Her name was on everything. Her fingerprints were all over the fraud. Ethan, he never showed an ounce of regret. Told the court he did it to even the score, for things that only made sense in his twisted head. When the verdicts came down, guilty on all counts, I felt something lift off my shoulders. Justice. Finally. But winning came with a price. The house felt empty. Too quiet. Every room was a memory I didn't want. Every echo reminded me of what I had missed, what I had chosen to believe. How had I been so blind? How had I let people like them get that close? But I did not stay down. I sold the cabin. I started focusing on my company, rebuilding the trust, the reputation. And you know what? My employees stood by me. Turns out, when you lead with honesty long enough, people remember it. I started going to therapy. Talking through the anger, the grief, the shame. It was not easy. But it was necessary. One evening, I sat on the porch of my new place, smaller house, better view, and watched the sun set behind the trees. For the first time in months, I felt still, peaceful. Lena and Ethan had taught me a lesson I would never forget. Betrayal cuts deep. But it does not get to define you. You have a choice, to stay broken or to stand up and keep moving. I took a sip of coffee, breathing in the quiet. If I could give anyone in my shoes a piece of advice, it would be this. Trust yourself. Even when the whole world feels like it is crumbling, even when the people you loved most stab you in the back, stand your ground. Because no matter how bad it gets, you are stronger than you think. The stars came out, one by one. And somewhere in the silence, I smiled. They were gone. All of them. And I was still here. Still standing. That was enough.